We'll want to navigate over to instances either by clicking here or clicking in the left-hand menu, and then we'll go to launch instances. And you'll notice we don't have anything running yet, but we'll click on launch instances. So this is our launch template, and it looks like a lot of information, and it is, but let's go ahead and walk through it, and it'll make a whole lot more sense once we've filled in the details. And let's start with the easy part. Let's give this instance a name. So I'll just name it my first instance. Just keep something basic, whatever you want. Then after that, we need to pick our application and OS images. These are called AMIs, or Amazon Machine Images, and they're basically templates that contain pre-configured software. So if somebody went through, they said, let's go ahead and install this operating system, like in this case, maybe Mac OS or Ubuntu, Windows, Red Hat, we'll use Amazon Linux. So they put the OS in there, they install some basic packages, they create an image out of it, they upload it to AWS, and then it's available for you to use. And these are pre-created by Amazon themselves, but other organizations like SUSE and Red Hat have uploaded their own as well. So a lot of these are pre-made, and as you get more advanced, you can also create custom ones too. We'll select Amazon Linux. We can see it's 64-bit, and we can get other information like that. Okay, let's go ahead and close this out. We can look at the description if we want to. The architecture, in some cases, can be changed as well. We won't mess with that. Keep note of this username. This is the default username that's baked into this image. We'll need that later on to get into it. And then after that, as we scroll down, we have the instance type. This is very important. It's important because it dictates the performance you're going to get. The smaller the instance, generally the cheaper it is, but generally the slower it is. You can see we have different families. Like here we have the T2 family, where we have one virtual CPU with 1 gig of memory. You also have bandwidth settings or limitations and things like that. So which instance you choose will determine the performance you get. There are all sorts of instances. You can see there's quite a bit in here based on how small that scroll bar is, right? And as you go down, generally it's going to get more and more expensive. Some of these can be extremely expensive, especially if they're GPU intensive. But for this lab, if you're in our lab environment, make sure you stick to T2 or T3.micro. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Next, we need a key pair in order to log in if we're planning on using SSH. We will be doing that in this lesson, so we don't want to select proceed without a key pair. Instead, we'll create a brand new one. And we'll just name this test. Doesn't matter. Actually, I'll just do my first instance just to match with the name of the instance. For the key pair type, I would recommend keeping RSA as the selection. You can also do ED25519 if you want. I don't think Windows supports this though. There's really no need to use this unless you have a specific requirement. So I would stick to RSA. And then for your private key file format, we can just use .pem for using it with OpenSSH. If you're going to use it with PuTTY, then you would use .ppk. We're not going to do that here. So let's go ahead and create this key pair, and then it will just save it in our downloads, and we'll get back to it in just a minute. Next, and this can get quite a bit more complicated, but we're going to keep it really simple for this lesson. The reason I say it can get complicated is because you can select all sorts of different VPC networks, subnets, etc. If you have multiple VPCs, you'd have a dropdown you can select from, but this one is only going to have public subnets. Then you want to make sure you have auto assign public IP set to enable, because otherwise this will not receive a public IP address, which will make it quite a bit more difficult to connect to. You can also create a brand new security group if you want. If there is an existing security group, you can always select that if you want to. Or like I said, you can create a brand new one. And then using the GUI here, we can allow SSH traffic either from anywhere or from our own IP address. Or if you're on a corporate network, you can do an entire range of IP addresses and so on. For now, I'll just do anywhere, but that's really not best practice. I'm just doing that for demonstration. We could also allow HTTPS traffic, which would be port 443. Or allow HTTP traffic for port 80. We're not running a web app on this, so we don't need those two. We can uncheck them. For storage, this is the basic, what they recommend starting with, which is just 1 times 8 gigs of a GP3. This is general purpose SSD. There's older generations ones as well, or provisioned, which are a lot more expensive, but higher performance. And this is going to be your root volume where you'll store most of the important stuff. So that's going to be the backend storage for this EC2 instance. We could also add multiple volumes if we wanted to, but we're not going to do that for this lesson. There are advanced details. We're not going to mess with these. This is, as the name implies, more advanced. We don't need that for this level of lab or lesson. Instead, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and launch this instance. This can take a few seconds, and then once it completes, you'll see a green bar. You can click on it, and then this part is going to take a couple of minutes. You'll see initializing for the status check. We can remove this, it doesn't matter. So I'll go ahead and pause here and then I'll be right back. And I'm back. So first you want to look for instance state of running, and then second, you want to see 2 out of 2 checks passed. These are health checks that AWS does for you in the background. Then we can go ahead and select this instance. We can click on instance state and we can view either we can stop the instance or reboot it or even terminate it, but we're not quite ready to do that yet. If we head over to actions, we can see connect, which is also available here. We can view more details, manage instance, or various settings like security groups, networking, images, even monitoring and troubleshooting, for example, if we had access to CloudWatch. But let's go ahead and connect to this instance. We have quite a few different methods of connecting. We'll talk about SSH in just a bit. There's also Session Manager, which we have as a separate lab in this course. So we'll get to that in a little bit later. We also have an EC2 serial console, but today we're going to be looking at EC2 Instance Connect. To do that, we need to know what username to connect with, and that was that username I told you to look at earlier, which is EC2 user. If you're using Ubuntu or an Ubuntu AMI, this would be a different username. Same thing if you're using CentOS or whatever else. But for Linux AMIs, typically it's going to be EC2 user. We'll see the pre-populated public IPv4 address, and then we'll connect using EC2 Instance Connect. Let's go ahead and click on Connect. And what it will do is it'll open up a browser-based terminal for you, so you don't have to mess with the SSH key or anything like that. Now that's it. I'm basically connected into this Amazon Linux AMI, or instance I should say, and I can run commands like pwd to see the current directory. I can do whoami, I can do cd, right? I can navigate to a different directory, for example. Now I'm in home. I can do LSL. I can basically do whatever I want within this Linux box. I've now authenticated into this EC2 instance, but without ever leaving the console, without leaving the browser itself. However, there are instances where we can't access this or we don't want to access this. Whatever the reason may be, we can pull up our terminal and we can use that SSH key that we downloaded before. So you can change your directory into your downloads directory or wherever you saved that file. And then we need to change the permissions on this file to be able to use it. So we'll do chmod of 400, and then we'll pass in our key pair name, which was, I believe it was my first instance.pem. So now that we've changed permissions on that file, we're ready to use it to SSH. So we can do, as this command is showing us, SSH-I, and then we'll pass in the name of our PEM file, and then we need to issue the user at instance IP. So for the user, you'll remember that it's EC2 user or dash user. And then for the instance IP, we need to fetch that from the browser. So let's head back to the prior screen. So let's back out of this for a second. And if we pull up these details, we can either try to use the public IPv4 address, or we can also try to use the public IPv4 DNS hostname. And that's actually what I'll use in this case. So I'll copy and paste that into my terminal, and then I can just press enter. It will ask me because we haven't established connection with this, so it's checking fingerprints. It doesn't know the host name or anything like that, but we trust this, so we can press or enter yes, and then press enter. And then it will connect us within our box, just like we saw with the browser-based terminal. So again, I can run commands like pwd, I can do ls, I can change directories, etc., etc. I can even make files if I wanted to. Although in this case, I don't have permissions to do that within this directory, but I could change to my own directory and do that, or use sudo instead. But you get the idea. We're now within a Linux box that's hosted on Amazon EC2 in the AWS ecosystem within our own custom VPC. So that's it. Feel free to poke around with either of the connections we looked at today. Make sure they work properly. Let me know if you have any questions below. Otherwise, go ahead and complete this lab, and I'll see you in the next.